There's a good reason that people in old photographs weren't smiling, and it had nothing to do with long exposure. Plus, the history of cannibalism goes back much further than we imagined. I'm Mike with List 25, and stay tuned as I count down strange facts you definitely didn't learn in school. While we often hear about atoms being the building blocks of everything around us, they are not the smallest unit of matter. There are even tinier particles lurking within atoms, like protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, while an atom isn't the absolute smallest thing out there, it is the smallest unit of a chemical element. So, in a way, it's still the smallest piece you can have of something, like gold or oxygen. There's a lot more to color blindness than most people realize. For starters, not everyone with it sees the world in shades of gray. In fact, there are different types of color blindness, and each one affects vision in a unique way. For example, people with protanopia, a type of red-green colorblindness, may see orange and green as yellow, and blue and purple might look the same. I think this is what my dad had, because he couldn't tell blue from purple. Color blindness is caused by abnormalities in the cone cells of the eye, which are responsible for detecting color. So depending on which type of cone cell is affected, and to what degree, people with color blindness will see colors differently. Have you ever heard that ants can lift 5,000 times their own weight? That's incredible, right? Well, unfortunately, as it turns out, that number is not entirely accurate. While ants are without a doubt the best weightlifters in the insect world, the truth is they can only lift 10 to 50 times their own weight. I mean, that's still pretty impressive. That's like a human lifting a car. So where did that 5,000 number come from? That's how much pressure their necks can withstand, not the weight they can actually carry, which still makes them pretty incredible no matter how we look at it. These days, billionaires are remembered by the empires they build and buildings named after them. But back in Roman times, for the wealthiest of all, that simply wasn't poetic enough. Super rich citizens like Marcus Licinius Crassus had their bodies treated uniquely, when they were loved and when they were hated. Marcus's net worth has been estimated at the equivalent of around $20 billion in today's money, and he had a huge influence on the trajectory of the Roman Empire. Apparently, after he tried to expand his power by going to battle with the Parthian Empire and lost, he was executed with gold. And no, I'm not talking about being buried with jewelry. He had molten gold poured down his throat as a representation of his greed. I guess at least he went down with a very valuable body. Hundreds of years ago, there were several different systems developing all around the world. One of the most interesting was the one used by the Aztecs, who lived in Central America between the 14th and 16th centuries. In one of the best surviving paintings explaining the system, known as the Codex Vergara, there are equations for geometry, division, and multiplication. Instead of numbers, the Aztecs used a dot for the number 1, a bar for the number 5, and a collection of different symbols for 20. Modern researchers analyzing the system have worked out that the Aztecs were likely using algorithms to determine the size of pieces of land. What's the real price of war? For Europe, up until the beginning of the 20th century, tensions had bubbled up and manifested in military campaigns, but nothing compared to what happened during World War I. Estimates of the number of deaths reached up to 40 million people. It defined the future of many nation-states, with 4 empires being ripped apart. By the end of the 4 years of bloodshed, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire had all fallen. From there, modern states emerged. But old rivalries would lead to another, even more devastating world war just over 20 years later. Lesson not learned, I guess. Speaking of war, it was in World War I that many military innovations first appeared. One of those was the tank. It may now be a common sight in images from conflict zones, but back in 1916 it was unheard of. It was the British who first unleashed it on their enemies, a gigantic vehicle called the Mark I, and it came in both male and female versions. The male tanks were loaded with huge 6-pound guns, while the female ones had machine guns and an escape valve. Unfortunately, the armor of the Mark I was relatively weak, with strong bullets and heavy infantry breaking through the outer shell. Still, the sight of a 28-ton death machine rolling towards you would have been terrifying to enemy soldiers. Your taste buds are on your tongue, right? Well, they're there too. While your tongue is definitely a taste bud hotspot, it's not the only place these flavor detectors are hiding. You've also got taste buds scattered throughout your mouth and throat. While I'm talking about the back of your throat, your epiglottis, that flap that stops food from going down the wrong pipe, and even the top of your esophagus. Some scientists even believe there are taste buds in your nasal cavity. We've all felt the sting of heartbreak. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a loved one, or a major life change, emotional pain can feel overwhelming. But it won't kill you, right? Wrong. While the saying, dying of a broken heart, seems like a dramatic exaggeration, there's a real medical condition called broken heart syndrome that can be triggered by intense emotional distress. This syndrome, also known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, mimics a heart attack with symptoms like chest pain and shortness of breath. It's caused by a surge of stress hormones, which can temporarily weaken the heart muscle. While most people recover fully, in rare cases, about 1% of the time, broken heart syndrome can be fatal. Are you under the impression that Coca-Cola was the OG of American soft drinks? Not even close. Coke might be an American icon, but it wasn't the first on the scene. That honor goes to Dr. Pepper. Born in a drugstore in Texas in 1885, Dr. Pepper in fact hit the markets a full year before Coke made its debut. So, maybe give the doc a little respect. Contrary to popular belief, the social giant known as Meta, or, Facebook, was not the first social media platform to grace the World Wide Web. Nor was MySpace. That honor goes to a website you've probably never even heard of, 6 Degrees. Launched in 1996, 6 Degrees allowed its users to create profiles, connect with friends, and even join groups based on their shared interests. All the features we've grown used to on Facebook. Granted, 6 Degrees eventually faded into internet obscurity, but it paved the way for the social media Goliaths we love or hate, or love to hate today. It might be something your grandma swore by, but the truth is, it is completely outdated advice. Whether you're shivering with chills or burning up with a fever, your body is working hard to fight off those nasty germs. And what does a hardworking body need? Fuel. That's right, even if you don't have much of an appetite, eating nutritious foods is important to boost your immune system. So the next time you're under the weather, forget that old wives' tale. Feed that cold and that fever. In war, there are no limits to propaganda, and sometimes even after the dust is settled. When the fighting of World War I was done and dusted, the following year there was still a lot of resentment towards Germany in the US. That's why Indiana put in place a law that banned German from being spoken in public, at homes, or even in schools. It was viewed as a language of the enemy, despite many early German immigrants to the US having completely integrated by that time. You ever wonder why people always look so sad and serious in old photographs? Especially those taken in the early days of photography in the late 19th century? I mean, rarely is there a shot of a family smiling together. Usually they have a gloomy demeanor, like posing for a photo was tough work. So, why so serious? One main reason is culture. People were still used to seeing images in paintings, whereas people rarely smiled in portraits. Why? Apparently cracking a smile might suggest some kind of mental illness, or at the very least, a lack of class. Eventually, people started to loosen up and relax more in photos. Look at this photograph! Every time I do it, no one laughs. We all know American Independence Day as July 4th. But if one of the founding fathers, John Adams, had his way, the holiday wouldn't be celebrated on the day the Declaration of Independence was signed. According to Adams, it should have been moved 2 days earlier to July 2nd. That's because the 2nd was the day that the Continental Congress first voted to declare the US a separate state from Great Britain. Centuries later, John Adams' argument is finally being adopted, with the city of Philadelphia celebrating July 2nd as a pre-Independence Day. A lot of people firmly believe in the power of a cleanse and love to tout the wonders of a trendy detox diet or juice cleanse. But the truth is, detox diets are just a fad. The human body is a self-cleaning marvel and comes equipped with a sophisticated system of organs, like your liver and kidneys, that are designed to filter out toxins and waste products. Those expensive juices and supplements aren't doing anything your body can't already handle on its own. In fact, some detox diets can even be harmful, depriving your body of essential nutrients and electrolytes. Have you ever heard that a base tan will protect your skin from the sun's harmful rays? That's a dangerous misconception. Although tanning salon visits may give you a temporary glow, they do little to protect you from future sunburns. In fact, a base tan is about as effective as wearing SPF 3 sunscreen, which is practically nothing. So why do people still believe in the base tan myth? It might be because a tan can temporarily make your skin less sensitive to sunburn, but that doesn't mean your skin isn't still being damaged by the sun's harmful UV rays. Wear sunscreen. Oh, that song takes me back. Look up the Sunscreen song if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Class of 99. How did it begin? Was it Class of 99? I think it was Class of 99. Oh, it's been forever since I've heard. Baz Luhrmann. He did Moulin Rouge and Romeo plus Juliet. And Australia. I'm just rambling now. Have you ever folded an A4 sheet of paper to the point where it wouldn't go any further? It usually takes about 6 to 7 folds before it becomes impossible. A few years ago, a hydraulic press took on the notorious 7th fold. When it tried to overpower the last fold, the paper literally exploded. Surprisingly, the debris resembled chalk rather than paper. Experts believe the explosion and strange transformation were caused by calcium carbonate, one of the ingredients in paper. Calcium carbonate, found in limestone, makes paper stiff and opaque. The mineral most likely collapsed due to the high pressure. As one scientist said, it failed like a cement column. This brings me back to the fact that if paper folding didn't have any barriers, we could theoretically reach the moon after 42 folds. What's more astounding is that 103 folds would take us beyond the observable universe. A chef's hat, or toque, is much more than the decorative crowning joy on an otherwise bland outfit. If you know what to look for, a chef's hat can actually tell you a lot about his or her training and level of expertise. For instance, did you know that the pleats on a chef's hat used to represent every recipe a chef mastered? More recipes equals more pleats. With time, however, the pleats came to represent a chef's experience instead of the recipes mastered. It's also interesting to note that the height of the hat is also important. The taller the hat, the more senior and experienced the chef. If you think the country with the most time zones is Russia or the US, well, you're wrong. Surprisingly, it's France. It has 12, 13 if you want to count its claim in Antarctica. That high number is due to the fact that France still rules over various territories throughout the world, from the Caribbean to the Western Pacific. The US and Russia both have 11, followed by the UK, Australia, and Antarctica with 9 each, and Canada with 6. The calm and cozy atmosphere a fire can bring cannot be matched. Fire, the epitome of light, crackling gently in the hearth. It's easy to imagine. Thinking about that play of light makes it seem almost illogical to say that a fire doesn't have a shadow, right? A shadow is nothing more than a dark spot caused by a solid object blocking the light. Since fire is just light and has no solidness to speak of, it doesn't have a shadow. But we've all seen fire's shadow, haven't we? As it turns out, that shadow is usually the result of warm air and soot moving in, through, and above the flames, and not because it blocks or prevents the flow of light. Everybody recognizes the 3-arrowed recycling symbol, but did you ever notice the letters or numbers written in or underneath them? These aren't just for show. They actually have a very important meaning for categorizing recycling based on their chemical makeup. The numbers range from 1 to 7. The first is polyethylene terephthalate, which covers most plastic bottles and jars. And the final category is polycarbonate and biodegradable plastic, like certain food containers. If certain kinds of plastics mix together, then it can make an entire batch unusable, so it's pretty important to have a system. Also, check with your local authorities, because certain places can only recycle up to certain numbers. So, for instance, here in Gainesville, I don't think I can recycle 5 or higher. So 1 to 4, I can throw in the recycling. 5, 6, 7, throw right in the trash. So before recycling, always check with your local government authorities. Recycling. You're welcome. Don't just recycle blindly. Just like recycling, car tires can have their own sophisticated system. Here, size matters. The numbers tell you the width, diameter, and load index of the tire, meaning how much weight they're recommended to carry. There are letters too, for the type of tube inside, whether they're for special vehicles like trucks, as well as what the maximum speed is. If your tire has a J speed index, for instance, it can only reach about 60 miles an hour. The highest is Y, which can withstand speeds of over 180 miles an hour, or about the speed of a Formula One car. We've all had the hiccups, but what can be a slightly annoying involuntary action that passes relatively quickly for some can be a massive issue for others. Take Charles Osborne, for instance. He had the hiccups from 1922 to June 5th, 1990, a total of 68 years. Just that fact alone leaves me with so many questions. How did he manage to eat and swallow? Did his wife sleep in the same bedroom? I mean, how do you cope with that? His hiccups inexplicably stopped 1 year before his death. At that point, he had already been married twice and had fathered 8 children. How many times have you felt someone looking at you just in time to look up and straight into their eyes? Well, it's one of the human race's silent superpowers known as gaze detection. In essence, it's your brain's finely tuned ability to sense when someone's staring at you. Neurological research has revealed that the brain cells that trigger your reaction are incredibly exact. The eerie feeling quickly disappears if someone shifts their gaze away from you by turning a few degrees to the left or right. While they can't explain it, scientists believe our gaze detection is powered by a still unidentified complex neural network. Many people believe technological innovation is a natural byproduct of time, but it takes human determination and readiness to bring about change. And I'm not talking about space shuttles or 3D printers here. Some parts of the world have yet to catch up with the technology the rest of us take for granted. For example, take Wyoming and their 2 escalators. As a result of diligent investigative reporting, The Atlantic discovered that Wyoming only has 2. Each is in a different bank in the Casper area. Such is the escalator phenomenon that parents actually bring their children to look at them as a tourist attraction. As far as we can tell, the report did not affect anyone in Wyoming, since according to our research, no new escalators have been constructed since the article was published. Did you ever spend time looking for shapes and objects in the cloud as a kid? Those were the days. I used to love cloud gazing, but never thought about the reasons behind clouds' color. For example, did you know that yellow, orange, or red clouds usually appear that way because of the dust and haze in the atmosphere? Pink clouds are created when ice crystals scatter red wavelengths of light, and gray clouds are nothing more than clouds blocking the sun that have become thicker. In fact, without immediate sunlight, clouds can even reflect or mirror the color of the atmosphere and look blue. All the more reason to get back to it. Life is too short to forget about looking at the clouds. If you have a bowl full of fruit and vegetables you can't eat because they still need to ripen, just chuck a banana in, and they'll be ready to eat in no time. Ripening fruits produce a gas called ethylene as they ripen, which triggers more ripening. Bananas release massive amounts of it, and putting one in your bowl of apples, pears, or avocados will significantly speed up their ripening. Avocados. Given the importance of Independence Day, sharing the date as your birthday must be an auspicious trait. But there's only one US president who has had the honor of being born on July 4th, and that is Calvin Coolidge. He led the country between 1923 and 1929, and he's remembered as a strong but quiet leader who was fiercely patriotic. It seems that from his birth, he was destined for the job. Imagine being held hostage and having no way of communicating with the outside world. There's nothing going out and nothing coming in. How would you know what to do or what to think? For Colombian soldiers under the control of guerrilla forces in 2010, the country had a genius idea to smuggle a message in. It wouldn't be through paper or by word of mouth, but through music. Military tacticians wrote a pop song and embedded a secret Morse code sequence in it, hoping the soldiers would hear it. From captivity, the soldiers did hear the radio being played, and they were able to decipher the message in the chorus, which simply said, 19 people rescued. You're next. Don't lose hope. The soldiers were released after negotiations with some confirming that the song was heard and did give them hope. The power of music. Hearing that a pilot has no legs is never reassuring. That is, unless that pilot's name happens to be Douglas Bader. A British pilot who began his career in stunts, one day Douglas had a near-death experience, rolling his biplane too close to the ground, where the plane's wing clipped the ground and he was pulled down with it. For any normal pilot, the crash would have been career-ending. Douglas was forced to have both legs amputated, leaving him with metal-made prosthetic limbs. Once World War II arrived in 1939, though, Douglas was determined to help his country defeat the Nazis. And the British couldn't afford to leave out a talented pilot, even if it was one without legs. By the end of the war, Douglas shot down 22 planes himself, and now lives on as one of the most legendary British pilots of all time. Diamonds are one of the hardest substances you can find on Earth. The first ones were discovered in South Africa in 1867, and the industry hasn't looked back since. But did you know that they do not show up on X-rays? Because diamonds have a radiolucent molecular structure, they're transparent to X-ray images. Fake diamonds, on the other hand, have a radiopaque structure and will be picked up by X-rays. So the next time you want to know if the diamonds on your ring are real, just simply book an X-ray. Easy peasy. This phenomenon is called cold welding, and it is as crazy as it seems. And it basically happens when two uncoated pieces of the same metal meet in space. Cold melting doesn't happen here on Earth, as the atmosphere creates a thin layer of oxidized material between the two objects. One might assume this would be a massive problem at the ISS, but as most of the tools come from Earth, they already have a handy protective coating of other materials. In fact, the only proof we currently have of this strange phenomenon so far has come from scientists experimenting to provoke this reaction. Usually, it's more important how you see yourself than how others do. But when it comes to international politics, it's a little more tricky. North Korea, which is relatively isolated from the global community, doesn't think of itself as North Korea. After the Korean War ended in 1953, it's actually still technically ongoing. The north and south of the peninsula were split in half and went in radically different directions. That's an understatement. While the South increased ties with America and created a democratic government, the North turned to an oppressive communist regime. To this day, people inside North Korea simply consider themselves Koreans. And if they had their way, it would be Kim Jong-un in charge of a united Korea. For now, that looks pretty unlikely, to say the least. The Adventures of Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un. Fantastic video series if you haven't seen it on YouTube. You have to like stupid humor. Scientists have known about the dangers of smoking for more than 100 years, but it took a long time to begin public health campaigns to inform the public. And shockingly, the first nationwide anti-smoking campaign was rolled out in Germany in 1940 by the Nazis. They were big supporters of reducing smoking, and so restricted where people could smoke, how much soldiers received, and how much tax tobacco companies had to pay. Hitler believed that it was a poison given to white people by Native Americans as revenge for introducing them to alcohol. As if science wasn't dystopian enough, now we're apparently able to give fake memories to mice. How did they do it? After genetic engineering, they were able to trigger memories of a mouse being electrically shocked by stimulating its light cells with a laser. Eventually, the researchers were able to get a new mouse with the same genetically engineered cells to respond in the same way to the same laser. The only difference was, it had never even been shocked. These were false memories implanted through genetic engineering. It gives us a whole new insight into how memory works in the brain. But hopefully it doesn't lead to us all being implanted with fake histories too. Are you afraid of catching something nasty from a public toilet seat? Well, you can finally relax. It's a common fear, but the truth is it's pretty much impossible to get sick from sitting on a toilet. Sure, there might be germs lurking on that porcelain throne, but most of them can't survive for long outside the human body. Even if a few hardy germs did stick around, they'd have to find a way into your body through a cut or other opening to even cause an infection. Parents and teachers have been telling us for ages that reading in dim light will ruin our eyesight. But guess what? It is time for that myth to go. Yes, reading in low light can make your eyes feel tired and strained, and you might have a harder time focusing, but it won't cause any permanent damage to your peepers. If you start feeling that familiar eye strain, just take a break. Look away from the page for a bit or turn up the lights. Your eyes will bounce right back. No harm done. Okay, let's have a heart-to-heart about stretching. We've all heard that you should stretch before you sweat to prevent injuries. But guess what? That old school wisdom might not be so wise after all. As it turns out, stretching cold muscles before a workout doesn't really do much to prevent those pulled muscles or strains. It's like trying to stretch a frozen rubber band. You're more likely to snap it than make it more flexible. So, what is the secret to injury prevention? According to the experts, you only have to focus on a good warm-up. Think light cardio, like jogging in place or jumping jacks, or do whatever you need to do to get your blood flowing and your muscles warm. You know what? You've made it this far, so why not like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell? It really helps the channel so we can keep making videos like this. Oh, and don't forget to check out our socials. While sweating it out can definitely feel good and might offer some benefits like improved circulation, there's no scientific evidence to support the claim that saunas actually remove toxins from your body. Your liver and kidneys are the organs responsible for filtering out wastes and toxins, and they do a pretty amazing job on their own, like I said before. In fact, some extreme sweat therapy practices can even be harmful, leading to dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. These holes are not for making better frisbees or just spinning on your finger. They are essential for discs to work properly. That's because of the way disc readers work. You see, discs aren't completely flat. There are tiny bumps on the surface, which are read by a laser. To do that, the disc needs to be spinning at a constant speed, and that's where the spindle motor comes in. This is a circular piece of metal, or plastic, which is why CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays all have a hole in the middle. The spindle spins it around quickly, allowing the machine to read the music, video, or data. Especially on older CD players, you can actually hear the whirring sound of the motor. Feel around on your keyboard and you'll notice some bumps. Unlike the ones on CDs or Blu-rays, these ones are made to be felt by our fingers. Small grooves, called ridges, are engineered onto both the F and J key to help guide you without looking down. On keyboards which have a numeric keypad, there's also a ridge on the number 5 for the exact same reason. You could say that it's a key part of the design. Speaking of holes, from school lockers to bikes and gates, padlocks are one of the easiest ways to keep your belongings safe. What you probably didn't know is there's a tiny hole at the bottom making sure that padlocks work no matter the condition. No bigger than the size of a pin, this hole is to let any water stuck inside drain out, stopping it from clogging up the mechanism on the inside. It also stops water from getting frozen in extremely cold temperatures. Frosted glass is used in homes, offices, and sometimes even public restrooms to allow more light through while keeping a level of privacy. That is, unless you have some Scotch tape. Sticking a bit of clear tape onto frosted glass instantly makes it see-through, just like regular glass. Why does this happen? It's because frosted glass has a rough surface, and laying tape on top makes it smooth, meaning light can bleed through much easier. Luckily, this only works for the frosted side, so you won't get anyone peeking in on you in the public toilet. When you think of a Buddhist monk, the image that first comes to mind is someone in a robe without shoes and, most important, a shaved head. So then why do most depictions of the Buddha have him with a head full of curls? Well, the story is a little complicated, and there are no certainties, but some of the first images of the Buddha were wavy hair. Over time, this evolved into small, compact curls, often with a bun on the top. Others claim that these are actually dried snails, which crawled onto his head during a meditation to protect him from the sun. However, this could just be a metaphor for the Buddha's union with nature. It's a common misconception that sunburns only happen on a hot, sunny day. But the truth is that harmful UV rays can sneak through the clouds and cause damage even when it's not scorching outside. In fact, it's quite easy for UV rays to get to you, even in the shade. So whether you're hitting the beach in the summer or skiing in the mountains in the winter, don't forget to protect your skin with sunscreen. When I was camping in Utah for 7 weeks, I was definitely told this. We're like, oh, it's snowing, we don't have to worry about it, but actually you can get sunburn in weird places, because you can get the sun reflecting off the snow, and you can get sunburn like up in here, which you never would think. So, it doesn't have to be completely sunny. Just wear sunscreen, and listen to the sunscreen song again. Have you ever wondered why clouds are white? It's easy to assume it's because they're reflecting the sun's light, right? But that's not the whole story. The secret to their fluffy white appearance actually lies in the size of the water droplets that make up those clouds. When those droplets are roughly the same size as the wavelength of white light, a phenomenon called Mie scattering occurs. This means the light gets scattered equally in all directions, making the cloud appear white to our eyes. They become gray or black when the droplets in those clouds have grown larger, to about the size of, raindrops. The bigger droplets scatter more light, preventing the bright white light from reaching our eyes. Have you heard that all clouds eventually make rain? Well, sorry, but no. While it's true that all rain comes from clouds, not every cloud can make rain. Those fluffy cumulus clouds you see on sunny days, for instance, might look like they're packing a punch, but they're usually just passing through without causing a single drop. And those wispy cirrus clouds high in the sky, they're made of ice crystals and are too thin to produce proper rain. So, while all rain comes from clouds, not all clouds are created equal. It all boils down to the type of cloud, its altitude, and the atmospheric conditions. When you pull up to a red stop sign at night, it's pretty hard to miss. That is, as long as your headlights are on. The light from your car is being reflected in a very deliberate way, called retroreflectivity. All that light bounces off the sign and instead of dispersing in different directions, comes back to its source, which is you, the driver. Sign manufacturers achieve this effect by using glass beads, special paint, and a layer of reflective sheeting. You've probably heard the word cumbersome, and know it's something that's difficult or inconvenient. But how about cumberground? Like cumbersome, it's a very old word dating back to 17th century England. Next time you want to inject some old-fashioned language into an insult, try using it. Cumberground refers to an object or person that's totally worthless. Basically, an obstacle to anyone and everything. Okay, so that might be a little bit too harsh, actually. There is nothing worse than having an itch that you can't scratch. And we've all had it before in that one spot on your back you just can't seem to reach. There's a word for that. Acnestes. It's most often found somewhere in the middle of the shoulders and comes from the Greek word for spine. This isn't limited to humans either. Many animals also have an acnestes. Maybe that's why dogs are so happy when you scratch them in that perfect spot. A lot of foot kicking. Can you imagine if us humans did that? Just like... Just like the padlocks from earlier, there's a tiny hole in the nozzle of pumps at the gas station. Don't be alarmed though, they are meant to be there. And without them, the process would be much more dangerous. That hole is usually found on the side, and it's connected all the way back through the pump. Air is constantly moving from the input, all the way back through to the pump in a vacuum until the gas tank is full. Then the airflow is interrupted and automatically stops pumping, usually with a clicking sound. This remarkable, simple safety feature stops gasoline from overflowing and spilling onto the ground. The US Supreme Court has long held the title of highest court in the land. It's well-deserved, albeit metaphorically. A more literal example could be the tucked-away basketball court that you can find just above the courtroom. The 5th floor of the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. once served as an archive for journals and other legal documents before it was transformed into a general-purpose workout area for off-duty staff members in the 1940s. The emphasis eventually shifted to basketball, and contractors installed a slightly smaller than standard basketball court. In recent years, justices such as William H. Rehnquist and Byron White have shot a couple of hoops there if they wanted to let off some steam. Sandra Day O'Connor also used it to host women-only yoga classes. I'm reminded of that video where he's like, that's the move that beat LeBron. I know we all run for a cup of coffee if we need a quick energy boost, but according to science, an apple is actually the better choice. Bottom line, an apple will give you more energy than your favorite cup of joe, but it will come from sugar rather than caffeine. If you're looking for more reasons to eat these fruits first thing in the morning, apples have been proven to help with weight loss, lower your risk of heart disease, and boost your gut health. It probably goes without saying that they also won't stain your teeth. And if you thought that was an interesting fact, be sure to stick around for the last 3 items on today's list because we have gone all out. I don't even know what's coming. I cold read these, so come on along with me. We're gonna find out together. Okay, this is definitely our fun fact for today, but did you know you can type out Alaska using only 1 row of keys on your keyboard? It's the only state that can be typed using only 1 row. Feel free to take a look. Feel even more free to put it to the test and let me know if you managed to get any other states typed out in a single row on your keyboard in the comments below. And again, if I'm remembering, Peru is the only country in the world that can be typed in order? No, typed on the... Yeah, I think Peru is the only country. That's coming from my brain, not the list, so I could be wrong. But I swear to God, it's Peru is also the only country that can be typed on 1 row. Correct me. It's what the internet loves to do. The police in the province of Xinjiang prefer their winged warriors over dogs because the geese are apparently more steadfast than dogs when it comes to tackling crime. And they're also harder for criminals to neutralize than a single canine. And if you've ever been chased by a geese, you will know exactly what they mean. Geese are scary as heck. I actually like them. I think they're adorable. They're honking. And if you haven't played it, Untitled Goose Game is fantastic. If we've never left you feeling all warm and fluffy inside, well, today is the day. Switzerland must have one of the most heartwarming laws in the world when it comes to guinea pigs. You are not allowed to have just one. The Swiss have put some thought into it and based their law on the fact that guinea pigs need social interaction to be cheerful and content. Owning a single guinea pig is not only against the law, but it's also considered to be inhumane, since it's harmful to a guinea pig's overall well-being and emotional state. Not only did the category exist, but it actually formed parts of the Olympics nearly from the start. For the first 40 years of competition, you could win a medal if you had a talent for painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, and music. In fact, from 1912 to 1952, 151 medals were awarded to original works of fine art inspired by athletic efforts. Unfortunately, it turned into an often-looked sideshow. It also didn't help that outsiders, rather than writers, musicians, or artists, initiated the events. After the end of World War II, Avery Brundage became the president of the IOC. He had an issue with the fact that winning a medal could serve as an advertisement for the level of an artist's work and ultimately had the category scrapped. The 151 medals awarded to the arts were officially stricken from the record and do not count towards countries' individual citation counts to this day. Aw. Not many food products you buy look exactly like they do in the packaging. I'm looking at you, McDonald's. But when it comes to candy, what's inside often comes pretty close to the picture. And there's a reason for that. Many confectionery companies use an ingredient called carnauba wax to make sweets look shiny and attractive. It's a natural ingredient coming from a tree in Brazil, but don't get too excited. Carnauba wax has another use too. It's car wax, which makes it sound a little less appetizing. Do you ever get the feeling that you're having to cut your nails really often? Well, it's probably one hand more than the other. Your dominant hand grows nails slightly quicker than your weaker one. On top of that, your longer fingernails grow slightly faster than your smaller fingers. These differences are tiny because the average rate is just under 3.5 millimeters a month, but if you let them grow out, you might notice. Captain Crunch, one of the most popular children's cereals in America. The brand has used commercials and cartoons for decades to promote its fictional character, simply known as the Captain. But if you want to feel a little more adult about eating it, you could call him by his full name. In a satirical expose published by the Wall Street Journal in 2011, it was revealed that the captain's complete name is Horatio Magellan Crunch, and that he had never really served as a naval captain. So all these years, Captain Crunch has been stealing valor. Many of us use contactless payments these days, which we can often do directly from our phones. But if you take the time to inspect your physical credit card, you'll find a few hidden details. Often one side of the card has 2 tiny bumps. They let people who are visually impaired know that the card is the right way up. That's also the reason for the notch on one side too, to direct people towards the end with the chip inside. Have you ever noticed how little some football players' lips moves when the camera pans across their faces during a World Cup ceremony? Well, that might be because they're from Spain. The Spanish national anthem doesn't have any lyrics. In fact, Marcha Real, Royal March, has had no lyrics since 1978. The anthem used to have words, however they were thought to be too fascist. There have been several attempts to find a remedy for the wordless anthem, but until it's found, the Spanish will continue to hum, while the rest of us sing. Chocolate pudding is one of humanity's greatest inventions. The genius combination of chocolate's rich and comforting flavor and the creamy texture of pudding is a feat to be admired and praised. The only downside of this heavenly dessert is that it's an unhealthy indulgence. As such, you should limit your enjoyment of it unless you fancy a case of tooth decay. But what if I told you that a fruit found in Mexico and Colombia perfectly mimics the taste and texture of chocolate pudding? It's called the black sapote, or the chocolate pudding plant. The fruit is about the size of an apple and grows on trees, but shrinks and turns brown as it ripens. It has such a distinct chocolate-like taste that it's often used as a substitute for it. Why didn't my mom know about this when I was growing up? I think I'm going to ask for a refund. You know what? Scrap that. I know I'm going to ask for a refund. Mom! Many of you may not know this, but Walt Disney did the original voices for both Mickey and Minnie Mouse before different actors took over. From 1986 to 2019, Minnie was voiced by Russi Taylor, while Wayne Allwine, Mickey's third voice at the time, had been at the helm since 1977. In a romantic twist of fate, the two voice actors fell in love while working together and were married in Hawaii in 1991. They stayed married until Wayne's death in 2009, and Russi passed away in 2019. Today, everyone above the age of 10 knows the alphabet by heart, and everyone knows that the last letter is, without fail, Z. Or Z if you're Canadian or from literally almost anywhere else other than America. However, Z was not the last letter to be added to the alphabet. The title of last place in the race of letter recognition belongs to the letter J. Our modern alphabet originated and was adapted from the Roman alphabet, which didn't contain the letter J. That's because in Rome, J formed part of the numerals. Despite its silent beginnings, J eventually found its spot nestled between I and K in 1524. Before that, I was used to indicate both the modern I and J sounds. If you're a Simpsons fan, you will know how Montgomery Burns answers the phone with, "Ahoy hoy."
Ahoy hoy?
This is more than an old-timey joke making fun of the character's age. It's actually a reference to Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. After patenting his creation, he wanted everyone to use the greeting ahoy when answering the phone, a word that has its roots in naval communication. So why don't we use that today? Well, you can thank Graham Bell's rival, Thomas Edison. Edison campaigned for hello instead. a word that had been floating around Europe during the 19th century. Clearly, Edison ended up winning that battle, and these days, ahoy is mainly associated with pirates. Oh, C. Montgomery Burns, you scoundrel. Smithers, release the hounds. Excellent. If dimples are a sign of attractiveness, then golf balls must be the most beautiful in sport. They haven't always been dimpled, though. Original smooth golf balls made with a rubber-like texture became dented pretty quickly, and it didn't take long for players to realize that these damaged ones actually went further because the aerodynamics were improved. To standardize this feature, dimples were added in the early 20th century to all golf balls. On the official ones used in the recent PGA Tour, the number of dimples range from 322 to 376. There are more than 13,000 McDonald's in the US. In Houston alone, there are 126. However, there's one state capital that isn't home to the Golden Arches: Montpelier, Vermont. It's probably because the city's tiny, home to just over 8,000 people, but if you happen to be in the city and need your fix of chicken McNuggets, don't worry, there's McDonald's about 15-minute drive away in the next town over. Say prunes! God, that just does not sound right. Well, we've probably all been on both sides of the camera, and we know you have to say cheese. However, back in the Victorian era, that word was prunes. The daguerreotypist Richard Beard apparently started the trend, as he wanted his subjects to have the perfect tart mouths, the very image of respectability and decency in those days. Prunes. Open smiles were typically associated with flirtatious images and weren't acceptable. Say, prunes. Prunes. I'm gonna start doing that. Forget cheese. Prunes are back at hashtag bring back prunes. Paris's most iconic landmark is its tall, revered Eiffel Tower. But did you know that it was actually never meant for Paris at all? In 1887, Gustave Eiffel introduced his designs to Barcelona, but the Spaniards rejected the idea of the giant tower as they felt it needed more aesthetic appeal. He later found success in Paris, but initially, not even Parisians favored the idea. It looked far too out of place amongst the city's classical and old architecture, and many even threatened to tear it down. Despite its rough patches, though, the Eiffel Tower has become one of the most beloved landmarks in the world, an international symbol of romance and love. If you love flying but hate long flights, then you should head over to Scotland. They've got the shortest flight in the world. It's true. The 2-minute flight will take you from Orkney Island's Westray to Papa Westray in northern Scotland, a total distance of just 1.7 miles. The world's shortest flight celebrated its millionth passenger in 2016. No small feat for a flight that only takes 8 passengers at a time. I wonder how much that costs. I'm gonna look that up afterwards. Human beings are amazing. Just how amazing continues to make the headlines every now and then. Case in point, the 2007 discovery by a researcher named David Zhang, who realized that our tongue prints, just like snowflakes and fingerprints, are 100% unique. I have so many questions. I mean, how? Because of this unique quality, scientists are looking at new ways to incorporate a person's tongue print into biometrical identification tools. Oh, I hope we don't have to start licking our phones. Well, because hopefully they're also working on ways to keep the process sanitary while they're at it. Oh no. Junk food is as addictive as drugs. Speaking about junk food, those cravings can be as serious as drugs. The way your brain takes both of these is very similar. Those sweet, salty, and unhealthy foods we know as junk food are scientifically referred to as ultra-processed foods. And researchers have found that these foods can be extremely addictive. They boost the amount of dopamine in the brain, making us feel good, but only temporarily. When it wears off, we're left wanting more. So sneaking a few French fries is not due to your weak willpower. These foods do have a very powerful effect on the brain. Schoolmasters became important in England during the end of the Middle Ages as education was formalizing. Their task was simple: keep the entire school under control. Okay, maybe not exactly a simple job, but it's a little easier when you consider the fact that the majority of schools back then only had a couple of classrooms. So it's natural that the term schoolmaster is actually an anagram of the classroom. You just have to rearrange the letters, because that's how anagrams work. I wonder which smart know-it-all student came up with that idea. And if no one claims it, dibs. That's me. I'll take credit. I called dibs. That's how it works. Sorry. Ever been on a roller coaster and felt that your body was really going through something? The speeds and dips and turns and twists can be a serious strain on the body, but research has found positive effects. Roller coasters can be so intense that they help pass kidney stones, the small hardened bundles of minerals that can clog up and damage your insides. While it's definitely not a substitute for medical treatment, simulations show that these stones can pass through your body much quicker with a roller coaster ride. You'd think that a donkey's vision would only cover its front 2 feet when looking down. However, their eyes are specially spaced out, basically on either side of its face, just so they can see all 4 at the same time. That means they don't have any blind spots and helps them be more coordinated. I mean, maybe they need it, because after all, they do have 2 left feet. Do you believe in the Virgin Mary giving birth to Jesus? Well, for any doubters out there, wait until you hear about this crocodile from Costa Rica. It may not be creating a new religion of tiny crocodile believers, but it's pretty strange to say the least. The crocodile has been kept at the Parque Reptilandia Zoo in isolation for more than 16 years. But in 2018, she gave birth to eggs with tiny hatchlings inside. Was this a miracle? Not exactly. But it does mean that crocodiles are capable of something called parthenogenesis, meaning they don't need a mate to fertilize their eggs. Up until now, crocodiles weren't known to have this ability. Now, females have definitely proved their independence. Chinese scientists have grown a tooth using stem cells from urine. Well, I bet that's not a sentence you ever thought you'd hear, but it's true. Back in 2013, a dedicated group of Chinese scientists turned number 1 into one of the most important tools of the body, teeth. The key to it was in stem cells, which are one of the most effective ways of repairing neurons, cartilage, tissue, organs, or, well, virtually anything in the body. The Chinese team working to create a tooth took cells from human urine, for some reason, and transformed them into these super powerful stem cells. Then, these stem cells were tinkered with to grow all the most important parts of a tooth, like dentin, pulp, and enamel. Now, I don't know about you, but I already don't like the idea of going to the dentist. If they're going to be working with urine in the future, well, count me out. I don't mind the dentist. You guys make me sound so bad. Rude. Kids, it's okay. Go to the dentist. There's nothing to be afraid of. They know what they're doing. Back in the day, before every phone had internet, collect calls were very popular. Just like the ones from prison, they mean that the receiver agrees to pay the cost of the call. This feature gave phone companies an insight into when people were desperate to talk to each other. And in the 90s, AT&T revealed that the most collect calls each year were always on Father's Day. These calls lasted longer than usual too, proving that those kinds of holidays are a good opportunity to think about the ones we love. Close your eyelids for a couple of seconds. What do you see? Okay, maybe, the flickering of the light from the screen you're watching this on, but in a dark room, you see pitch black, right? Wrong. That color has a name. It's called Eigengrau. It's technically a very, very dark gray, which is because the photoreceptors in our eyes are still working even in super dark environments. This is also why after being exposed to bright lights and then closing your eyes, you get those white moving dots or colors. There was a time when every cafe was full of hipsters. They were mainly young people with tattoos, a lot of facial hair, and usually thought of themselves alternative. Although they pretty much all end up looking the same. The term peaked in the early 2000s, but its origins go back much further. During the 30s, when the coolest kind of music to listen to was jazz, people who had a deep knowledge of it started to be known as hipsters, meaning up to date. By the 60s, it was used to describe trendy people with baggy pants. And by the 2000s, finally made its way to the skinny jean, flannel-wearing modern hipster. And if your local bar is filled with craft beer and microbrews, well, then you have the hipsters to thank. There are some parasites that have been floating around for thousands of years and continue to affect us today. One of those is Giardia, which causes an infection with cramps and nausea and can cause long-term intestinal damage. Fun. During an excavation in Jerusalem of ancient toilets, scientists found this Giardia parasite, proving that it had been sending people running to the bathroom for thousands of years. Brain surgery is probably something you imagine with clean, sterile equipment, high-tech cameras, and super precise tools. But it wasn't always this way. And if there's one thing that's true about humans, it's that there's almost nothing we won't try. Around 1500 BCE, people were already experimenting with brain surgery. The evidence? A skeleton dating back to this time found in northern Israel with a distinct hole in the side of the skull. This was determined to be drilled with a man-made tool, and the operation was something called a trepanation that was common among a variety of ancient civilizations. It's not clear exactly what they were trying to achieve or what symptoms these people suffered from, but one thing's for sure, it would have hurt like hell. After a global pandemic, it's understandable that everyone's a little on edge about foreign bacterial infections. In the UK, when a 48-year-old man rocked up to a hospital one day after getting bit by a stray cat, doctors were initially worried about tetanus or rabies. But it was soon clear that the symptoms were something completely different. His skin became puffy, red, and incredibly inflamed. Surgeons were forced to cut out part of his body's tissue, but the bigger question was, what the hell was this kind of infection? The closest doctors got to identifying it was classifying it to the Glabicatella family, but the search continues for what this new, aggressive kind of infection was, and how dangerous it might be. I have a stray cat story if you want to hear it. Let me know, maybe I'll tell it next time I mention cats. If you've ever worried that tomatoes might increase your risk of cancer, well, it's time to breathe a sigh of relief. The juicy red fruit is not your enemy. In fact, it might just be your best ally in the fight against cancer. Research has consistently shown that tomatoes and tomato-based products are linked to a lower risk of various types of cancer. The key ingredient? Lycopene, a powerful antioxidant found in abundance in tomatoes. This bright red compound has been shown to protect cells from damage, reduce inflammation, and even slow the growth of cancer cells. Celery, the crunchy, low-calorie snack, is often hailed as a diet miracle. But is it really a negative calorie food, meaning that you burn more calories eating it than it actually contains? While celery is undeniably a low-calorie veggie, it is not calorie-free. It does take some energy to digest, but the amount of calories you burn chewing and digesting a stick of celery is far less than the calories it provides. So while celery is a healthy and hydrating snack, it's not going to magically melt away calories. Also, it's gross. It's stringy. Oh, I do not like celery. Ants on a log. I don't even like that. What a waste of peanut butter. Just give me the peanut butter. I'll take the raisins. I like the raisins. Tornadoes are not just a tornado alley phenomenon. While the Midwest and Southern Plains are famous for their twisters, it's a common misconception that these destructive storms are limited to that region. The truth is that tornadoes can strike anywhere in the United States, from the sunny shores of here in Florida to the snowy peaks of the Rockies. In fact, some states outside of Tornado Alley, like Florida, even see a higher frequency of tornadoes than some states within the alley. And it doesn't stop there. Tornadoes have even been reported on just about every continent except Antarctica, so they truly are a global phenomenon. And fun fact, they can sometimes come with hurricanes, so here in Florida, we get both. Hooray! What's the most famous political assassination of all time? Abraham Lincoln? JFK? Well, historically, the answer is probably Julius Caesar, whose death was immortalized by English author William Shakespeare. Caesar, who had recently been elevated to the dictator of Rome in 44 BCE, was taken by surprise and killed by a group of Roman senators who opposed him. This all happened in a place called Largo Argentino in Rome, a place which has only been recently opened to the public to enjoy. Are there any better-known mad geniuses than Ludwig van Beethoven? He was considered ugly and half-crazy, which might have been explained by his terribly poor health. To start with, he became deaf in his 20s. Not exactly great for a guy pursuing a career in music. Researchers have now analyzed Beethoven's DNA using pieces of his hair and found out just how sick he was. And not the 90s kind of sick. They found that he had hepatitis in the final stages of his life and a severely damaged liver. Beethoven also suffered from mental poisoning, lupus, and a handful of other illnesses. Somehow, through all the pain and torment, he was able to compose some of the most beautiful classical music ever made. Are you the kind of person who craves silence? Or maybe you prefer to be in the middle of a loud party? Well, according to new science, your brain might not really be able to tell the difference. Experiments have found that we tend to believe continuous sounds are longer than two separate sounds, even if the two sounds add up to the same length. According to the study's authors, what this means is that the brain treats silence in the same way as sounds. Maybe that's why some people find environments that are too silent unnerving. It's the same as being too noisy. I guess if you love clouds, you're loving this list. And it's easy to believe that clouds are weightless, but that's actually a misconception. Clouds are made up of tiny water droplets or ice crystals, and those tiny particles add up. A typical cumulus cloud can weigh hundreds of thousands of tons, equivalent to the weight of over 100 elephants. So, how do these massive clouds stay afloat? It all comes down to density. While clouds are heavy, the air they displace is even heavier. This means that a cloud, despite its weight, is still less dense than the surrounding air, allowing it to float high above us. 'Cause she's so high, high above me. Xmas is everywhere during the holidays, and while some folks might think it's disrespectful to Christ, the real story behind it is actually pretty amazing. Believe it or not, that X isn't some modern attempt to make the holidays less religious. It's actually a nod to the ancient Greek word for Christ, Christos, which actually starts with the letter chi. The X is just a shorthand way of representing that letter. So the next time you see Xmas on a card or in a store window, don't get your tinsel in a tangle. It's not a sign of disrespect, but a nod to the roots of Christmas itself. I'm gonna start spelling Hanukkah with an X. I mean, we Hanukkah anyway, so there are multiple spellings of Hanukkah, which is fun. Have you ever munched on a Hydrox cookie and thought it was just a knockoff Oreo? Well, you've been duped. The truth is, Hydrox was the original chocolate sandwich cookie, hitting the shelves in 1908, a full 4 years before Oreos even existed. Oreo's rise as the Cookie King is all due to the power of marketing and branding. Oreos simply outplayed Hydrox in the popularity contest, leading many to mistakenly believe that Hydrox was the copycat. With climate change and sustainability an important issue for everyone, the construction industry is always looking for new, greener material to use. Now, they've found one in an unlikely source. But it's not pretty. It's used diapers. And I'm not sure who first had this idea, but a research team found that recycled diapers contain cotton, plastic, and wood pulp, which can all be used for making a concrete mix. It was then used in a one-story house, making it more than a quarter of the materials used. Luckily, the diapers are cleaned and sterilized first, so it's not going to leave a stench in your new home. And considering that over 18 billion diapers are thrown out each year, that's exactly the kind of out-of-the-box thinking it'll take to save the environment. If you listen closely, you'll hear music everywhere. And for one creative scientist working at Yellowstone National Park, the sounds of an earthquake appealed to her as a potential piece of music. She used a specialized program to convert seismic vibrations from underneath the surface into musical notes, which were then performed by a flute player. The end product is a piece of music that sounds jumpy and choppy and gives you a real sense of how it must feel to be underground. Among the worst crimes imaginable has to be cannibalism. It's hard to fathom having the urge to eat another person's flesh, but historically it may have actually been the norm. In a cave used by our ancient ancestors in southwest England, the remains of half a dozen humans tell a graphic story. Their bones have cutting and teeth marks, proof that they were eaten by other humans. These remains are from over 14,000 years ago. But in other parts of the world, evidence of cannibalism goes back much further, to as long as 1.5 million years ago. I guess at some point, if you're desperate and hungry, meat is meat. Ticks are tiny arachnids that spread parasites, and they work in mysterious ways. They don't have the ability to jump, and so use static electricity as a kind of highway to go directly to their victims. That electricity is the same kind that you can use to shock someone after rubbing your feet on a carpet. We accumulate these electrostatic charges all the time. Ticks build up some of their own too. And between the two forces, it's enough to catapult ticks through the air and towards an animal's skin, up to a few centimeters. That might not sound like much, but considering how small ticks are, it's the equivalent of a human traversing a few flights of steps in a single jump. That would be historic. The word gringo is actually way older than that and popped up in a Spanish dictionary as early as 1787. So, where did it come from? The leading theory is that it evolved from the Spanish word griego, which means Greek. Spanish speakers used it in the same way as we say, it's all Greek to me, indicating something was difficult to understand or unintelligible. Over time, grigo became gringo, and it started being used to refer to any foreigner who spoke a language the locals didn't understand. Pretty cool, right? Irregardless. The word is frequently criticized by grammar purists, but guess what? It's actually a real word. And yes, it might sound a little redundant, but dictionaries recognize it as a legitimate word, meaning without regard to, or despite the circumstances. So why all the hate? That's probably because ir usually means not, so irregardless means not regardless, but hey, that's just the nature of language. It evolves, and every so often words just stick around, even if they don't make sense. The bottom line, irregardless of the grammar police's opinions, it's a real word. But don't use it in your next term paper, just in case. So, which of these facts was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias, including my personal ones, links in that description, as always. And guess what? If you like today's list, you will love the list we did a few months ago on 25 facts that'll make you question everything, where I discussed the fact that women can smell venereal diseases and looked at what exactly turns us into mosquito magnets, because I know I am. Oh, boy, am I. So to go to that video, click on it right here. We have made it really easy for you. You don't have to just literally move your mouse, click it,